Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. I'm going to be doing some sand casting of brass. I recently made up these foam patterns and I kind of wanted to give it a try on turning one of these into brass. I just didn't know which one I wanted to do today, but I will in the future do all of them. Normally when I do lost foam casting, I use this dry sand. But today, I'm going to be trying something a little bit different. I'm going to be using this green sand foundry sand that I have. This sand has some clay mixed in it, which will allow it to hold its shape when compressed. For the casting flask that I'm going to be using today, I'll be using this two-part mold that I made out of some scrap wood. Now, because I don't usually do lost foam with this sand, I wasn't sure exactly how I was going to do this. But I figured I would probably do this how I would do any two-part mold. And that's just place the pattern down and then put the sand on top, compressing it into the foam. But because it's foam, I couldn't really compress it all too much because I didn't want it to deform the foam. So when I filled it all the way to the top, I scraped off the remaining sand and flipped it over. Before I add the other half of the flask, I'm going to be cutting in some runners to the bottom part. I'll be using these dowels and I'll press them in and remove them, allowing me to have a perfect channel. Once these are removed, I'll then add in some gates just by cutting some of the sand away between the pattern and the runner. I didn't film it, but I did brush away and remove any of that extra sand that I just carved away. Now before we put the second part of the flask on, we're going to be adding some talcum powder. This is going to make it so the other half of the flask does not stick to the bottom half of the flask. And then we're going to go and add some more sand into the pattern. Oh, and I almost forgot. I need to add the sprue. This is where we're going to be pouring the molten metal into the pattern. We're going to be doing the same thing as we did before, filling this mold box with sand, gently compacting so I don't crush the pattern because again it is made out of foam. We're going to fill this all the way up to the top. Now that we have reached the top, I'm going to pull out the sprue and remove this top half of the mold box. I'm now going to scrape away the runners from the top of this mold box because if I left them there, the aluminum wouldn't even enter the pattern. I then thought I was ready for casting, so I then closed the mold box and I poked some holes in the top to help it vent out because again I'm going to be burning foam. Now I hope you guys didn't skip over this part because I did change my mind. I thought I might have a hard time burning the foam using the molten brass and it wouldn't really vent out as good as I thought. So I then decided to burn the foam out with a torch. I think this would work much better because now I have an empty cavity for the molten brass to flow into. Now recently I've been getting some comments about adding some borax to my melts, so today I'm doing just that. I'm going to be adding the borax to this brass to hopefully get a cleaner cast. Now you guys may remember seeing these rings. I cast these ingots out of the rings a few weeks ago using my Vivor electric furnace inside of my garage. So today I'm going to be remelting those brass ingots and I'm going to be adding a bunch more rings to the crucible. Now that the crucible is full, I'm going to bring it out to my furnace and start melting down this brass. If you're new to the channel, the reason for this sand surrounding my cast is because I keep ruining my driveway with molten metal. So I have the sand there just in case I have a spill. Now that the brass is molten, it's time for me to scrape away any of the dross that floated to the top. Upon doing this, I really didn't find any slag on the top of this. It was just the borax that floated to the top. I still have some brass left over in the crucible, so I'm going to place it back in the furnace, reignite the furnace, and preheat the molds that I'll be pouring that brass into. It's been about 15 minutes and these brass ingots have cooled down, and it's now time to quench them in some water. And now it's time to see if my sand cast came out. And it looks like I got a good cast today. I'll now scrape away some of the sand on the perimeter of the brass and see if it was a full cast or not. It looks like it's a full cast. Pretty sweet. And by the way, it's been about an hour, so I am able to touch this with my hand. So don't worry, it's not that hot. I now cut off the gates, and this is what we have. I'm going to take this to the sander and clean it up even further. And today I'm going to be using this Vevor belt sander to do so. And there we have it, guys. We have an almost perfect brass casting with foam. And I say almost because I did crush the foam a little bit in the back by compacting that green sand. And now let's bring this to the scale and see how much it weighs. Now, if you're new to the channel, definitely hit that subscribe button, leave a comment below when you did, and like the video. This thing weighs a total of 0.57 pounds. Thanks for watching.